So in today's video, I will show you how to paint realistic lips using an airbrush. I have a list of equipment and tools that I use throughout the painting process, so you can refer back to those at any time. So to begin with, I start off with a drawing. I usually draw freehand before I start painting so that I have a clear guideline. I then trace the drawing on a separate piece of paper and use an X-Acto blade or a Stanley knife to cut out the stencil to its desired shape so that I can use during my painting process. In my previous video, I go into greater depth. I believe how to paint the ears or the eyes. I go into further depth on the benefits and advantages of using a paper stencil, and essentially they are a great tool when using it for edge control. And edge control refers to the spectrum of hard to soft lines or contours that you can achieve in a composition when painting. Because I'm drawing or painting the lips, it is a very soft subject matter, so therefore I don't want to overspray using the stencils, or else I'll end up having a hard outline everywhere and it will begin to look a bit cartoonish. So having a firm grip on using freehand painting techniques alongside the stencil use is a good sort of habit to get into. So yeah, you can see here I'm using the stencil on the left hand side of the lips to frame the edges, so I have a rough guideline and then I go over it with freehand techniques to make sure that I have a soft transition. And right now I'm still focusing on the values and the shape and form of the lips. The lips are kind of pillow shaped, and I want to say, yeah, they're sort of pillow shaped and cylindrical in form. And I'm constantly looking at my reference, and I can see, okay, the light is coming from the right hand side of the reference photo and the shadows are being casted on the left. So I know right away that the left side of the lips is going to be darker than the right side. If you're ever unsure of the composition between light and dark, a good technique would be, if you are working from a photograph, is to desaturate the image so that it's black and white, and to slightly adjust the contrast so that the values become more evident to the eye, so you know where you need to paint darker and where you need to paint lighter. So you can see here that I'm constantly going back to that left side of the lips to up the contrast and to sort of mist over areas that are still too light, to level out the values and make sure that they are where they need to be. And if I've gone too dark, I'll simply get my pencil eraser and I'll knock back some of those values and lift up some of those highlights. I am working on paper, which is very absorbent, and it's got a bit of a tooth, a bit of a texture to it, so I can't get back the white of the paper completely. So that's something to be mindful of when deciding what surface to paint on with an airbrush. So here you can see there's a split screen of me working on the lips, but using two techniques for them. So on the right side, I'm mainly using freehand techniques in order to draw the creases of the lips, and on the left hand side, I'm using the stencils more. Or did I get the wrong way around? I think I got it the wrong way around. On the right side, I'm using the stencils more, and on the left side, I'm using more of those freehand techniques. And again, it's important as artists that we get a firm grip on both techniques and that we don't rely on one over the other too much. You know, you want to have a balance and be able to switch between techniques wherever possible, wherever is more convenient for you. So I'm mainly using the freehand techniques on the outer edges of the lips to make sure that they're softened, and I'm using the stencils mainly on the creases and the bottom of the lips, because that's where most of the shadow is being casted. So you see me going over the creases of the lips a couple of times. It is one of the darkest points in the reference, because where the top lip overlaps, it casts a really narrow shadow. So therefore, I'm constantly going over the same area again to make sure that I darken it enough so that it matches the same values that I see in the photo. And when I say value, I keep saying value throughout this whole video, I'm referring to the grayscale value. So the darkest shade of gray, almost black, to the lightest shade of gray, almost white. So I'm painting the shadows underneath the lip, and I would say it is at this point that the lips actually start to look more three-dimensional and actually pop out from the surface. And having, you know, the right composition of values organized in a way really impacts how the image and how three-dimensional the painting looks. Because before I put the shadows underneath the lips, to me it still looked very 2D and flat, even though it had all of this detail. And here I'm doing an inverse technique with the paper stencil. I'm using the pencil eraser alongside it to pull back the highlights and get a sharper highlight where the Cupid's bow is and just the top of the lip. So you can use paper stencils in many different fashions and forms. And that pretty much concludes the painting demo. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it very helpful. And, you know, if you like the video, please give me a like and a follow. It will really encourage me to make future videos.